Hello. The primary source I selected was a story from the life stories of undistinguished Americans. A college Starcher story was dated in the collection on August 10th, 1905, which I presume is when this woman actually wrote it. Here's the list from the link of the primary source. Here's the actual story. Um, I'm starting with some lines that I feel display gender as a dictator of one's class. At this time, the lives of men and women did differ, so even in the same financial status, a woman was in the societal category separate from a man. Since slavery had been abolished by this time, any statistics that I did find, I just used those that would cover women as a whole, not any specific race. Um, Here we go. When I left school at the age of 16 to go to work, there were very few opportunities open to young girls, for the time was nearly 30 years ago. So presuming, oh well, I could just read this note. She was speaking on about the 1870s when she was 16, um, trying to do the math. So a starcher I became, and a starcher I am to this day, or rather I was until the strike came in May, which, if the math is correct, would be 3 months prior to her writing this. I worked side by side with my friends, sorry, the girls I had gone to school with, met at church, and at dances and picnics. My note: this is the security that girls usually know and hold on to when they begin working in this time period. Not as easy as and safe as in 2013 to just look for and go to work somewhere all by yourself. Um, so now I have a few statistics on um, 1890. Here are the numbers if you want to pause and look more carefully. This is urban US and this is the country as a whole on these two age categories, um, and the race separations as well for working women. In 1890, the employment rate for white single women was actually lower than African Americans and foreign-born single women. That stands for urban America and the United States in its entirety. She had already been working for some years by this time, although this information applies to the age she was when she started and for the next 18 years. Um, Moving on, um, these lines pertain more so to how a woman's life is harder once she becomes a mother and does not have a partner present to help sustain the family. I imagine this worsens her difficulties in society, being a woman, B, without a man, C, a child with a child or children. By my husband, my husband, sorry, was taken ill, and before I realized that he was seriously sick, I was a widow with a 2-year-old daughter to support. I naturally thought of the factory, but a friend who kept a grocery store begged me to come to live with her and help her with the business. I was glad to do it on account of my little girl, and I did the best to become a good grocery clerk. I cannot say I enjoyed it, however. My note for that would be I searched the percentages of women in the circumstance of needing to provide for her young in our decade, and to show you that 2 years ago, 2011, um, looking down to other marital statuses, and this is total, meaning women, not for any specific race. Um, Women in total, um, with children under 18 years old, 7,054 would be the number taken. Um, and for women that didn't have children, it's a much higher number, but as you can see, it's still a pretty large number contributing to this total number of 31,338. Um, that makes, I think, a significant value to the fact that there are, sorry, many women in this decade that have to work because there is not a partner around to supply for themselves and the children they have. Um, I hope I delivered that point well enough for you to understand. Um, And another section contributing to that would be, my second husband had incipient consumption when I married him, although neither of us knew it. He died after a short illness, and 6 months later, my little boy was born. Before the baby was a month old, I was back in the factory, a starcher girl once more. Except for this interval of 6 years, I have earned my living starching collars at 4 cents a dozen. I have managed to bring up my two children fairly well. They have gone to school, and my daughter has had music and dancing lessons. My note would be that now a mother of two, she's making life choices to be able to supply the necessities and even some pleasure to her children's lives. Continuing to move along. Um, okay, no specific highlights for this sticky note, but I would say that the class system this woman fits into is the industrial or working class. There is a picture I would like that I would think, sorry, there is a picture I would show that I think gives a visualization of her position in society. Here we have it. At the top, capitalism, and the people are labeled as we rule you, we fool you, we shoot at you, we eat for you, and down here where I think she would fit, on the left hand it says we work for all, and on the right hand it says we feed all. And on the top left hand corner it says the industrial worker. That's all I can read, but I think it pretty much says what I'm trying to say, which is that the bottom is what category this young woman fits into. And for our last set of lines, what note do I have here? Okay, here are two sections I'll read briefly describing the strike that was mentioned in the first paragraph. The table starchers and the machine starchers held a meeting and discussed the situation. We agreed that we could not stand a reduction of 50%. We felt that we should have to grant something to save ourselves, so we agreed to accept a reduction of 25% by working after the machines, with bunchers and hangers up, but we were firm in our determination to stand by our old wages for table work. The firm referred them to the Manufacturers Association, The association refused to meet the men, but agreed to meet a committee of the starchers. On May 11th, the starchers met the association, and 2 days later they met them again. Nothing came of either meeting, and a few days later, all the girls walked out, not only from our factory, but from the 9 in the association. And just this tidbit for you, I guess. Here's a book that actually talks about the strike that this woman was a part of. A study of the Troy Collar Starchers Union in the early 20th century and the impact of the 1905 collar starchers strike on the Troy working class community and the collar industry. It's on sale on a variety of websites. And also, I just have one line from this website. 1905 was a crucial year, not only for its revolutionary content, but for its expression of the dynamic and form of working class struggle. It's a simple line, but I think it just is a little commentary on the fact that 1905 was, I see, a big year for workers. And lastly, I have a line of her own, I guess, position in the strike, or her first-hand account, I'll say. The non-union girls were certainly terrorized. A few of them were handled pretty roughly. We have been denounced for this. Well, there may be better methods of preventing thoughtless and heartless girls from injuring their class and thereby injuring themselves. And my note for that would be that using the term class, she acknowledges that a woman that is working in their society has more to represent by the conditions she will live and work under than just the earnings she can claim at the end of the week. The wages that those new and naive girls were willing to work or replace the former workers for was a representation of their value as workers. This could be seen as a form of making it easier for society or men to devalue women as working class citizens or as equal members of evolving society in general. And um, by that, I simply leave you with the fact that this woman, I think, went through it all. She started young, she explored the working world as a way of changing her life, I'll say, getting an income of her own, even though women versus men had a hard time finding employment. And even when they did, the wages were not easy to stretch through their living, their food, any clothes they may needed to purchase, and that they needed to band together as women. And unfortunately, there were some women that didn't really care too much for the unity and effort of creating that solidarity and building up the working class female. But she went through it all. She protested, and she um she had her role in um society. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation and I made all of my points clear enough for you to understand. Good night.